What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our SEC football channel. It is time to give you our updated predictions after week 2 of the college football season. We're going to go and do this each and every week and see how our predictions change as we progress through the season, as we learn more about these teams, as we see big upsets and just all the things that happen during the college football season. Should be a lot of fun. But right here, we're going to give you our updated predictions after week 2. In the SEC East, we haven't made a lot of changes. Obviously, Tennessee is a team that we don't feel the same about, at least compared to where we thought in the preseason. But overall, again, this division, it's still going to go about the way I thought that it would. You can see our new prediction there, what the team currently is, what their record currently is, and then where our preseason ranking was, or preseason prediction was for this team. So Georgia, we have them now at 11-1. They're 2-0 overall. Preseason, I had them at 11-1 as well. So really no change at all for the Bulldogs. I still think they lose a game. I think maybe they lose to Florida or Auburn on the road, or maybe there's just an upset somewhere on that schedule for Georgia, but I still think that they will finish at number 1 in this division. Florida, I haven't changed my mind on Florida either. I've got them at 9-3, 5-3 in the SEC. Now you've got Georgia on the schedule for them. You got Auburn. That's looking like a tougher matchup. South Carolina, Missouri, Kentucky. I mean, there are a lot of teams in this East that I think will have an opportunity to challenge this Florida team. They also have to play LSU on the road. LSU looks really good right now. So I still think Florida's going to lose a few games. I kind of want to put them at 10-2 now. I know they were sloppy against Miami, but you just look at some of these other teams. Kentucky lost their starting quarterback. And Tennessee's awful, so they might could get to 10-2. I think that's much more realistic now, just seeing how all these teams are playing out. Missouri 7-5 now. That's our new prediction. They're 1-1 overall. We had them at 8-4 in the preseason, so we've dropped them down a game. Obviously, did not anticipate them losing to Wyoming, and that's why they dropped. So they go now to 7-5. South Carolina, we've dropped to 5-7. I think they missed out on a bowl game. It's mostly just because of that schedule. That North Carolina game was a must-win for this team. They had to have it if they were going to get to a bowl game. They did not win that game. They're 1-1 now overall. 6-6 was our preseason prediction for South Carolina, so we've dropped them down a game. Again, did not anticipate them losing to North Carolina, just like I didn't expect Missouri to lose to Wyoming. Same story there for South Carolina. We've dropped Kentucky down a game as well, now 7-5. They haven't lost. They're 2-0. They're going according to script so far, but I think the injury to Terry Wilson is going to hurt them a little bit. And so I've got them finishing 7-5 now. And then we've got Vanderbilt at 5-7. Preseason we had them at 4-8, so I've actually bumped them up a spot despite the fact that they're 0-2. I think Tennessee now is a much better opportunity for a win for Vanderbilt. Also Kentucky, if Terry Wilson, or he is done for the year, so without Terry Wilson, they might be more beatable. Now, we don't know for sure what Sawyer Smith's going to look like. He may come in and be great, but at this point, I think losing Terry Wilson has to be considered, a pretty big impact. And then there's Tennessee. I feel bad for Tennessee fans. It is rough in Knoxville right now. They look better against BYU, but they still lost. They found a way to blow that game late. They're 3-9. Our updated prediction is 3-9 for this team. I still think they get a win in the SEC. They're going to knock off somebody. Last year, remember, they beat Auburn and surprised everyone. They've got UAB still on the schedule in Chattanooga, so I think they can get to 3 wins. But it's going to be a rough year for Tennessee. Preseason, I had them at 6-6, and we've dropped them down 3 games. In the SEC West, we haven't made any major changes, I don't suppose. Alabama, I had them at 12-0 in the preseason. Still have this team at 12-0. Don't really see anyone beating them. They look a little bit more beatable after the Duke game. At least early on, you could see how this team could potentially struggle. But still, I think they're going to go undefeated. LSU, I have at 11-1. I think that they will lose to Alabama. That will be their only loss. I had them at 10-2 in the preseason. Thought this team would probably just slip up somewhere, maybe Mississippi State on the road, or there's somewhere that LSU would probably lose. Now, as good as they looked against Texas, I think they win the rest of their games. So I think they're 11-1. Auburn at 9-3. We have made no changes for the Tigers. I had them beating Oregon, so everything is going according to script for Auburn as well. Texas A&M, same exact story. I had them at 7-5 in the preseason. Still going to keep them at 7-5. Very difficult schedule. They play Georgia out of the East. That's going to be a tough matchup for them. So I've got them at 7-5 still. Mississippi State, we bumped up a game. I bumped them up to 8-4. I've really been impressed with how this team has looked so far. I know they haven't been challenged, haven't played anybody great, but they've looked really good in the teams that they have played. And they've played quality group of 5 teams, not great teams, but they played pretty good teams. Southern Miss, not a bad team. And Louisiana, I believe it was in the first week, pretty good team. So I bumped them up a game, actually, up to 8-4. We got Ole Miss at 4-8. We had them at 5-7 in the preseason. The loss to Memphis and the way that Cal is looking, I had them in the preseason splitting those 2 games. I thought they'd beat Memphis, lose to Cal, or vice versa. Now I think they're probably going to lose to Cal. I mean, Cal looks pretty solid right now. Ole Miss, so I think they get a couple of wins in the SEC. We haven't changed that part of our prediction, but I think the non-conference loss will get them, and they'll go 4-8. And then Arkansas, we had them making a bowl game in the preseason. Had this team at 6-6. Now I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Arkansas will make it to a bowl game. I have them finishing 5-7. I still think they get a conference win somewhere. Mississippi State, they get them at home. Perhaps a big upset there. We'll see. Missouri late in the year, maybe they could pull off an upset there. But I think Arkansas is going to miss out on a bowl game. We'll see how they look moving forward. But so far, and this team hasn't looked great. And I've got the Razorbacks finishing 5-7 to round out the SEC West. All right, so based off of our predictions, obviously we have Alabama and Georgia in the SEC Championship. This has not changed. This is what I picked in the preseason. I'm going to stick with it. I tell you, LSU looks interesting. They might have a chance, I think, in that SEC West. And I'm going to give you my percentages in just a second, where I will break it down and give you the percent chance I think each team has to win their division and then ultimately win the SEC Championship. But you've got Alabama and Georgia here. In the preseason, I picked Alabama to go undefeated. I picked Georgia to beat them in the SEC Championship. I had Georgia losing 1 game and still making it to the college football playoffs. So that was my preseason pick. Just thought maybe Georgia was finally ready to get over the hump to beat Alabama, but I have changed my mind. I don't even know why, but I'm going to go with Alabama. I think Alabama gets the win over Georgia. They win the SEC Championship. They finish 13-0. The defense looks pretty good for them. I mean, look at what they did to Duke, and they had some injuries in there as well. So the injuries kind of brought me down on Alabama. I thought, maybe I'm too high on this team, but for whatever reason, I'm just back to believing that Alabama is going to win the SEC this year. I just think that they're on a mission, and I said that in the preseason. They need to play better, but we've seen Alabama in the past struggle kind of early in the year, and then they pick it up about halfway through. And the schedule is not bad for the Crimson Tide. They really won't be challenged until they play LSU late, and then maybe Auburn. Texas A&M could give them a fight, but I think Alabama wins the SEC. And how about our odds to win the division? So we go to the SEC West. I'm going to give Alabama a 70% chance to win the West. Still think they're the favorite. More than likely, they're going to win this division. LSU, I've got them at 25%, so a 1 in 4 chance that they win the West. If they had Alabama at home, I would probably have LSU closer to 40%. I really would, because I think head-to-head Alabama versus LSU, they are very close. But playing in Tuscaloosa, I think, is going to be enough to give Alabama the edge there. And I realize LSU maybe has even played better there. But people always say, well, home field advantage doesn't matter because this team's actually had a better record on the road. It still matters. Just because things have happened like that in the past, it's still an advantage. I don't care what has happened in history. Home field advantage is an advantage, and I think Alabama will use that advantage to beat LSU. And then Auburn, I've got at 5%. I realize you probably think, well, the only reason they're on here is because you're an Auburn fan. No, it's because they have Georgia and Alabama at home late in the year. That is the reason I think Auburn could potentially win the West. It's a very small chance, but I think they have a chance to win the West. They're not going to beat LSU. I'll go ahead and tell you right now. I do not see Auburn going into Baton Rouge and beating LSU. They haven't won there since '99. So I don't think that's their path. I think their path is to beat Georgia and Alabama at home like they did a couple of years ago, and then they need LSU to lose 2 games. So that might be easier said than done. It could happen, but I think their path is actually, they have a better path, a better chance of getting there that route than beating LSU. Because I just, again, don't see them winning that game in Baton Rouge. So we're going to give them a 5% chance. If they had Alabama and Georgia on the road at the end of the year, I'd probably have it at 0. But we know what can happen sometimes in those games. We saw it just a couple of years ago. We saw it in 2013. Crazy things happen against Georgia and Alabama and Jordan-Hare this year. It could happen again. Who knows? The East hasn't really changed for me. I still got Georgia and Florida as the favorites. I still think Georgia has a clear advantage over Florida. We'll see what happens. Even the schedule kind of plays into Georgia's favor. They do have Auburn on the road late in the year, but Florida plays Auburn, and then they also play LSU. Now, Georgia plays Texas A&M, but I think LSU is much better than Texas A&M. So there's a lot of things, in my opinion, going for Georgia, even if they lose the head-to-head matchup. Even if Florida beats Georgia, I still think Georgia might have a better chance to get to the SEC championship game. But I do think they're the better team. I think they're probably going to win that game. It's a long ways away. We'll see. But to me, it's Georgia and Florida in the East. You look at the other teams, no one's really been impressive. Tennessee is obviously not going to win this division. Missouri lost to Wyoming. Kentucky just lost their quarterback. Vanderbilt has not looked impressive. South Carolina lost to North Carolina, also lost Jake Bentley. Now, Ryan Helinski may go in there and be an even better quarterback for them. We'll see. But there's just no one in the East that really, to me, has any opportunity to win that division. It will be Georgia or Florida, and I still think Georgia is the favorite. I've got them at a 75% chance to win the division, just a 25% chance for Florida. Now, how about the odds to actually win the SEC championship? I think Alabama is the favorite. I've got them at 40%, still under a 50-50 chance, so we're not just giving the SEC championship to Alabama by any means. I've got Georgia in there at 35%, LSU at 20%. I think if they get there, they're probably going to win it, but can they get there? And again, can they beat Alabama? They've got to either beat Alabama or have Alabama lose 2 games. I don't see Alabama losing 2 games. That would really be a shocker. So it's going to be tough to get there, but again, if they can get there, I think LSU has a real chance to win the SEC championship. Florida at 3%, just getting there is going to be tough, and then you got to win that game. Auburn would have to probably play Georgia or Florida in a rematch, so they have basically no chance. So to me, it's Alabama, Georgia, or LSU. Those are the 3 teams in the SEC that have a really good chance to win this conference and win the SEC championship. What do you guys think about it? Who do you have in the SEC championship? How have your predictions changed? What teams have you been surprised by, whether it's good or bad? You can let me know down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports YouTube channel.